General Hospital spoilers tease that Willow once thought she could predict all the hurt, that after everything she had been through, nothing could ever break her again. But the moment she pushed open the hotel room door and saw Nina and Drew in the same bed, all those assumptions shattered. Willow's world seemed to fall apart. Each jagged shard of brokenness piercing her heart, rendering her speechless and numb. She stood there, frozen in utter shock, as the unimaginable image seared itself into her mind. Erasing all the beautiful memories she had once had of the man she loved and the mother she still hoped could be saved. The initial shock left Willow staring blankly, unable to react. A part of her wanted to turn and run, to erase every memory in that instant. But in the midst of her emotional storm, another part of Willow, stronger and sharper, forced her to stand still and observe carefully. There was something wrong with the entire scene. Drew's eyes, filled with confusion and fake shame, his awkward gestures. His reactions not matching what a real cheater would exhibit. And Nina too, her rushed anxiety poorly hidden behind a forced smile, all too evident to Willow, whose eyes had grown accustomed to deceit. Gradually, as her mind regained clarity amidst the dizziness, Willow began to realize the truth unfolding before her. This wasn't just an ordinary betrayal. It was a trap, a clumsy staged act aimed at destroying every shred of trust and hope between her and Drew. A calculated plan. Soaked in the desperation and obsession of the mother who she had repeatedly given chances to, only to be met with bitterness every time. A new obsession slowly crept into Willow's heart, not the fear of losing Drew, but the disgust at the lengths Nina would go to manipulate her emotions. The affair trap Nina set for Drew, rather than driving a wedge between them, only brought Willow closer to him, while pushing Nina further away to a point of no return. In that moment, Willow was no longer the vulnerable girl easily swayed by tears or excuses. She had changed, grown, and learned how to see through every false expression. Every hidden agenda disguised under a veil of fake affection. The betrayal didn't come from Drew, it came from Nina, the one who gave birth to her, the one who should have protected her. Not staged grotesque acts like this. Willow felt cold contempt flood her mind, and from that moment, she made an irreversible decision. All the mistakes, all the dangers in her life came from Nina. And it was time to end it all. One of the greatest eruptions in Willow's life began at that moment. She not only refused to forgive Nina, but she also completely rejected all the control and emotional ties Nina had ever imposed on her. Willow would never cry over Nina again. She would no longer cling to the remnants of a relationship that had died long ago just out of blind loyalty to the concept of family. She chose to sever all ties, to save herself from the endless cycle of disappointment. That change in Willow wasn't just a fleeting emotion, but a complete transformation in the way she faced the world. She no longer feared loss. No longer feared confrontation. If Nina dared to set up this dirty game, Willow was ready to face it head-on, no avoidance, no compromise. Drew, standing by her with eyes full of remorse and commitment, became the only ally she trusted completely. Willow knew that she and Drew would face many storms ahead. Especially since Nina surely wouldn't let go easily after this humiliating defeat. But this time, Willow wouldn't back down. This time, she would fight to the end, not only to protect her love but also to regain control of her life from those who had tried to manipulate it. And while Nina struggled desperately to salvage what she had lost, Willow, with eyes filled with determination, stepped out of the shadows of her past, stronger than ever. Ready to embrace the future she had chosen for herself, without anyone's permission. Willow never thought she'd reach this threshold, but when the truth was laid bare and could no longer be denied, she didn't hesitate any longer. The hurt Nina caused this time went beyond everything Willow had endured, beyond the final limits she could still forgive. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a profound betrayal of love, trust, and the last remaining pieces of hope Willow had for their fragile mother-daughter relationship. Therefore, with all her pain and absolute clarity, Willow made a decisive choice, to sever all ties with Nina, to end every bond from blood to the emotional illusions she had tried to hold on to. That decision didn't come from a momentary rage. Nor from a weak impulse, it was the result of a long process of enduring too much, of accumulating repeated disappointments, of forgiving only to receive more pain. Willow knew that if she continued to give in, if she allowed Nina to drag her back into the whirlwind of chaos one more time, she would be the one to destroy her own self-respect and self-worth. And she couldn't let that happen again. But in that very moment when Willow let go completely of Nina, a new obsession quietly began to form inside her, a fear not of the past, but of the future she was now heading towards. By placing all her trust in Drew, by letting him become the only anchor in a crumbling world, Willow had unconsciously handed him everything most fragile about herself, her trust, her hopes, her heart, and even her soul. She longed for unconditional love. A solid protection she had never had since birth, and Drew, with his kindness and strength, had become the perfect image of everything she had lacked for so long. But that blind trust began to open a new danger, silent yet powerful. Willow no longer had any shields left for herself, no exits if this love crumbled again. She had removed all her defenses, tying herself to a man she loved but couldn't fully control. And that was the greatest danger. For if Drew was strong, if Drew deserved all that trust, Willow would be saved. But if not, if just once, if only for a fleeting moment, everything would crumble with a destruction greater than any earthquake she had ever faced. One of the new adjustments silently unfolding within Willow was that she was no longer the naive girl she once was. But at the same time, she was stepping into a path where the independence and logical analysis that had once helped her survive were being set aside for a powerful, blind love. And that was what made everything go further. Drifting out of control. Willow had placed herself on a ship speeding forward too quickly, without any brakes to stop her if needed. New obsessions about losing control began haunting Willow in restless dreams. She dreamed of Drew leaving, of standing alone in a sea of strangers, of calling his name in vain. Though she woke up and reassured herself that it was just a hallucination caused by fear, the anxiety clung to her like an inseparable shadow. Willow felt she was walking on thin ice, knowing that one small crack could send her plunging into the abyss with no hand to pull her up again. And then, as an inevitable consequence of all those simmering changes, a new shock began silently accumulating beneath the fragile calm surface. The seemingly solid relationship with Drew, the absolute trust Willow placed in him. The decisive break with Nina, all of it created a massive tension where just one small event could trigger a chain reaction beyond control. Willow didn't know if the future would truly be safe or if it was just another illusion she was desperately clinging to. In the bright yet cold light of the decisions just made, Willow knew that she had changed. She was no longer the frightened girl, hesitant in the face of choices. She had learned to choose her own path, even if that path was filled with danger and loneliness. But that courage, that bravery, also forced her to face unforeseeable risks, where love, trust, and survival intertwined in a game that was too big, too brutal, and that she had no choice but to continue, because there was no turning back. After a series of unfortunate events and near breakdowns that almost destroyed his relationship with Willow, Drew is now using all his skills and influence to subtly plant new secrets and carefully selected stories into her mind, aimed at rebuilding the trust he nearly lost. Drew doesn't just apologize or explain, he is gradually constructing a new reality in Willow's mind, a reality where he is the only trustworthy person, where their love is the only thing that exists solidly amidst a world full of betrayal and pain. Day by day, with unwavering commitments, promises never to repeat his past mistakes, and assurances that no betrayal will ever touch their love again, Drew makes Willow's trust in him grow like a child nurtured by hope. He promises that past mistakes will forever be nothing more than scars from the past, that no mistakes will ever come between them again, and that Willow will always be the one he respects, loves, and protects. Willow, in her desperate longing to be loved and to feel safe after so much loss, easily accepts these promises as though they are her only source of life. Drew's words, his earnest looks, his caring gestures, all weave an invisible net around her, reinforcing Willow's trust in Drew, growing into a fortress that she locks herself inside, believing that as long as she clings to Drew, she will never have to face pain again. However, it is precisely during this process that a subtle form of control is quietly forming. One that Willow is unaware of. Drew is not merely soothing her wounds, he is silently guiding how Willow views the world, how she evaluates relationships around her, and how she distinguishes between friends and foes. By continuously emphasizing the betrayal of others, especially Nina, and the irreversibility of past mistakes, Drew skillfully causes Willow to withdraw, narrowing her world until only he remains. Willow, once a girl with an open heart and independent mind, is now slowly turning into a woman who only seeks guidance in Drew's eyes and words. She doesn't realize that each time Drew emphasizes the future, only the two of them. Each time he whispers the promise, no one else is worth trusting, he is breaking down an old defense inside her, replacing it with new walls of trust that Drew himself has built. This control is not brutal, not forced, but sweet and gentle to the point where Willow willingly gives up control over her own life. She feels safe in this dependence, feeling more loved each time Drew tells her that the outside world is not worth her concern. And the more time passes, the more Willow's trust in Drew becomes absolute, pushing her further from the vibrant reality she once lived in. Willow is now floating on what seems to be calm waters, but beneath the surface, dangerous undercurrents swirl. She no longer doubts, no longer questions, and no longer holds on to the natural skepticism that should exist in any mature relationship. She lets Drew lead her through every decision, every thought, every emotion, telling herself that this is true love, the perfect bond she's always longed for. But deep in her heart, a small part of Willow still whispers unanswered questions. Is love built on such soft control truly sustainable? Is absolute trust in one person, to the point of losing her own independent analysis, the right path? Willow hasn't allowed herself to answer those questions yet. Because for now, the sweetness in Drew's promises, the persistence in his every gesture, remains the strongest armor protecting her from the storms of the past. And so, in a world rebuilt by vows and absolute commitments, Willow continues to walk forward, full of hope but also hiding within her a smoldering bomb, waiting for some unexpected event to trigger it and test the fragile world that she and Drew have painstakingly built. After the humiliating failure of her plan to trap Drew with an affair trap, Nina not only didn't give up but became even more deranged in her ambition to destroy him. For Nina, the collapse of her old plan is not the end, but the beginning of a more insidious, more ruthless, and far more dangerous counterattack. Consumed by a burning obsession for revenge and a quiet fury raging within her, Nina vows not to stop until she sees Drew kneeling in humiliation and defeat. No longer choosing half-hearted methods, Nina decides to form an alliance with Portia, a partner with her own wounds and complex motives. In secret meetings under the cover of night, the two women, each carrying their own storm of anger and hatred, lay out a much bigger, bolder, and more malicious plot than anything they had ever conceived before. This time, the plan is no longer just about trapping Drew in a love scandal. They prepare to launch a comprehensive, extended campaign, carefully calculated to destroy him at his roots, attacking his career, reputation, personal relationships, and even his spirit. Every weak point in his life, every smallest secret, every mistake from the past will be exploited, amplified, and twisted into deadly weapons. At that moment, Drew feels the dangerous undercurrents growing stronger around him. He notices small but threatening changes, suspicious looks from colleagues, malicious rumors spreading like a plague, strange phone calls, and anonymous letters trickling in daily. Every piece of life that Drew had carefully built, every relationship he had preserved, now seems to be quietly severed one strand at a time, making him feel increasingly isolated, pushed out of the world he once thought was safe. Willow's trust in Drew is still intact, strong and shining, but even she cannot stop the growing anxiety within her as she witnesses the invisible pressure building on the man she loves. Drew, despite trying to appear strong and resolute, feels the cracks inside him growing, the old fears of betrayal and loss rising quietly within him, pulling him into an inescapable psychological whirlwind. The sophisticated attacks being constructed by Nina and Portia are designed to wound Drew on the deepest level, not only destroying what he has but also making him doubt himself. A carefully prepared fake dossier, containing convincing but fabricated allegations, is aimed at Drew as the perfect weapon. Photos, false testimonies. Intricately woven details, so convincing that even those closest to him begin to waver in their trust. Nina's obsession is not merely to see Drew fall. She wants him to experience the pain of being abandoned by everyone, even by those he loves the most. She wants him to taste the agony of losing everything, piece by piece, until all that's left is an absolute emptiness. And while the plot draws closer to its climax, Drew, though sensing the danger, still cannot pinpoint exactly who is behind these subtle upheavals. The accumulated exhaustion, the mounting pressure, and the eroding trust push Drew to question himself. Is he really as strong as he once believed? Can he protect Willow and those he loves when everything around him is falling apart beyond his control? One of the greatest internal explosions of Drew's life is happening now. Old and new fears collide, merging into a violent storm in his mind. He becomes more irritable, harder to trust, and occasionally experiences panic attacks amidst sleepless nights. He feels like a man running through a forest with no way out, unable to tell friend from foe. And in that moment, Nina and Portia, like ruthless craftsmen, continue to weave the web of fate. Each thread, each knot, without hesitation or remorse. They know that just a little longer, just one final fatal blow, and Drew will no longer be able to resist. The confrontation is approaching its climax. Drew, amidst the storms of doubt and despair, will have to choose, either give up or rise up to fight with all that's left of him. But in a world where the truth is distorted, trust is manipulated, and enemies hide in the shadows, can Drew find a way out of the darkness? Or will he be swept away forever in the flood of hatred and lies? While Nina and Portia silently tighten the trap around Drew, with his sharp instincts and survival instincts honed through years of enduring loss and betrayal, begins to notice the cracks and weaknesses in the conspiracy surrounding him. Drew understands better than anyone that if he continues to play a passive defense, always waiting for surprise strikes, he will soon be crushed in the ruthless game Nina is leading. Therefore, Drew makes a bold decision, to use the very crisis to counterattack. No longer the hunted prey, Drew silently plans to take control of the game. He begins to exploit Nina's impatience and haste. Understanding that the closer she gets to her goal, the more prone she becomes to mistakes driven by her blind hatred. Drew does not directly confront her, does not openly accuse her, but chooses a more subtle method, to stir up tension, pushing Nina into a defensive position, forcing her to reveal her plans to the light. As a result, the tension between Nina and Drew grows suffocating, like a rope being gradually tightened between two unyielding opponents. On the surface, both maintain a thin facade of polite social interaction. But just one glance, one seemingly harmless remark, is enough to make the atmosphere between them thick with tension, as if a spark could ignite everything. Nina, sensing the change in how Drew faces her, begins to waver. She feels she is losing control, losing the ability to direct the situation as she wishes. Each of Nina's next steps feels like walking on thin ice, while Drew, with his cold, calm demeanor, patiently waits for the moment his opponent brings about her own defeat. And then, as a natural result of the ever-increasing tension, one of the shocking moves finally erupts. Drew, in a sudden move, releases evidence of the secret meetings between Nina and Portia. The covert dealings, and suspicious financial exchanges that he had quietly gathered over time. With this irrefutable evidence, Drew not only shatters the conspiracy in the making but also completely turns the tide. From the hunted, he becomes the hunter. This shock strikes Nina like a cold knife straight to the heart. Everything she had painstakingly built, all her efforts at revenge, now turn back to attack her, piece by piece. Nina, who once thought she held the cards, is now forced to play a desperate defensive game, as all her dirty secrets are gradually exposed to the public of Port Charles. The madness of failure drives Nina into even more uncontrollable decisions, pushing her toward the abyss she herself had dug. Drew, meanwhile, does not stop at exposing Nina. he knows that just one blow is not enough to end it all. Therefore, he continues his attack, systematically breaking Nina's connections, unmasking each plot. Each lie she had hidden under layers of false morality. Day by day, the confrontation between Drew and Nina pushes Port Charles into the epicenter of an earthquake. Those who once trusted Nina begin to turn away, and those who once feared her power now dare to speak out. With each passing day, Nina's reputation plummets, piece by piece, beyond saving. In this battle, Drew is not only fighting for his own honor but also for Willow, for the trust she has placed in him. Willow, witnessing everything that is happening, no longer doubts the true nature of Nina. Her love and trust in Drew grow stronger than ever, forming an unbreakable wall against the dark schemes from outside. But even as victory seems within reach, Drew knows that the war is not truly over. For Nina, cornered and desperate, still has one last card to play, a card that, if Drew is not careful, could burn everything he is trying to protect. And so, in the increasingly thick atmosphere filled with lies, hidden agendas, and lingering obsessions, Drew stands firm. Preparing for the final confrontation, where only one side will step into the light, while the other will forever be buried in darkness.